Well, first of all, I've been gone for 10 days. We went on family vacation, um, Disney World for 2 days, and then a Disney cruise, which I never thought I'd be the type of person to enjoy a Disney cruise, and they're actually really great if you have kids.
Yay.
What was so interesting was the customer service night and day between like Mickey Mouse and the TSA at Orlando Airport. At Disney, they're like bend over backwards, how can we make this better? And, things like that. And the TSA is just like, go F yourself. So that was, I was paying attention to that a lot. And I actually worked at Disney World when I was in college. And every time I interact with the Disney company, that customer service training kind of comes back to me. And it's definitely something that I need to tap into when it comes time to open my space. So that was kind of just a fun thing to think about the whole week. As well as their like all the data tracking they do and customer behavior collection and things like that. So it's pretty fascinating. But yeah, so I am in the process of hiring a marketing person. It's going to be trade for services. So their work in exchange for free membership at my space. And I narrowed it down to 2 people, and just kind of looking through what they've sent to me and, what's going to be important, what's not so important, how much of it is it just going to come down to personality fit and such. So that's kind of the big thing on my plate this week. Yeah.
Oh, that's plenty. That's plenty. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Jen. John, what's going on in your world?
Um, wow, that's loud. I may have said last week that we finished out our framing and glass was going in, so I was actually able to show space to 3 prospective office members, and all 3 of them have I'm sending out commitment letters or reservation form today. All of them wanted space, so that was a really good start, and looking forward to continue moving forward with meeting with other prospective members. And so it's always good to get your first.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exciting. Okay, cool. Any major kind of burning questions as you're getting through that?
Yeah, there was one that I meant to ask. It was I guess Augie. I don't know if you're open or not. Are you in the process of opening?
Still in the process.
Okay. If there was anyone on the call that has already opened their office, and maybe you can answer this, Tony. I was curious about offering virtual mailboxes. It's something we're looking at, and I'm getting information from various companies that I've researched, and it looks like it could be potentially a really good profit center, and not utilizing any more space than I already have.
Yeah, I've heard good things. So if you're willing to, I think if you're willing to invest the effort to get it set up and the management overhead, if any, the profit margin is high because it doesn't affect your physical space. It gives you more people on your mailing list. It's just it diversifies your revenue stream. I haven't done it myself, but having the physical address, having a place to have your mail sent, I think it is a valuable service if you're willing to work on setting it up.
Yeah, I talked to a friend that owns a mailboxes, etc., and he has a huge waiting list just because there's a lot of people that do work from home that want to have a PO box or a business address. That's their means of doing that. So like I said, we're sort of in the exploratory stages, but I think it is definitely something we're going to want to offer.
Yeah, I would add the only thing that the major caveat that I come up with as I'm hearing you say it is that anything around accepting mail and packages can get thorny over time. We've had a number of members who made us their business address, and then we just started getting mountains of spam and all kinds of correspondence. And then the member would leave and not change their address, and then we'd continue to get mountains of garbage for years. So and it was huge pain. And you have the issue of holding mail for a member who maybe doesn't come in for months at a time. And so I would say that if you do decide to go this direction, it can be valuable, but consider that it will require some investment in improving those processes around how you handle mail, how you communicate the handling of mail, the training that's involved, and just the storage space and that kind of stuff. And it's basically, it's business process stuff.
Right.
So, if someone quits, this is how we communicate with the person. This is how we deal with someone who has quit but hasn't changed their address. We've actually attempted to, at times, contact the post office and do a mail redirect. We try to figure out where the person ended up, and just tell them like, hey, business isn't here anymore. Send the mail somewhere else, right?
That's a good point. I never thought about the the change of address, and whether, did the post office actually allow you to do that for another individual?
I think you can. I don't remember what the conclusion was of our undertaking in that direction. I think we attempted it, and I don't know if it worked. But it's definitely a factor. And it becomes tricky because you get a piece of mail, you might not know what it is.
Sure.
You might know that it's something important. It might be a tax document. It might be a huge check from a client. It might be a subpoena, right? Like you get this stuff. And so there are big legal implications, right? Like someone's mail is federally protected private property. So if you're handling it, what you do with it is kind of important. If someone's mail comes to your place and now you're holding on to their mail, and then they never show up, they don't respond to your stuff, and you just throw it in the garbage, are you legally allowed to do that? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but there's some interesting questions there,
No, that's a great question. Fortunately, one of my partners is a lawyer, so if that's something we do offer, we might want to add that to the membership agreement, that if they leave and they don't provide us with a forwarding address after a certain amount of time, we're not responsible for that package.
Yeah.
So.
And in the membership agreement especially, you could go so far as to say that that they agree to change their address immediately upon giving notice of leaving, and that they'll agree to cover the costs of anything related to the storage and distribution of their mail. Something that gives you a lot of leeway. Mail was a huge pain for us, and we were a small space. So I would definitely.
It's got to be worth it. It's got to be, for obviously the headache. But.
And on the other end, I've heard several people who do the virtual office stuff say that they love it, that it's very profitable. It wasn't my experience because I didn't do it, but those are your balancing acts. And this whole mailing address issue is going to be a problem no matter what you do.
Sure.
People are going to make your business their business address, even if you don't tell them to. Even if you don't explicitly offer it. So, getting these operational things figured out is going to be necessary no matter what, which tells me maybe it is worth doing the virtual address stuff anyway, since you're going to have to deal with all this no matter what.
Great information. Thank you.
Just to add to that, so I plan to offer as well. And John, I'm sure that your partner who's a lawyer will tell you this, but there are some spaces that just kind of do it under the table. And then just, sure, you can use our address, no problem. But then the legal correct way to do it is to become, I think it's called a mail point with the United States Postal Service. I think that's what it's called. And then you'll get like a barcode on your door and stuff like that. And yeah, that costs a little bit of money, but then you get to have the services of the U.S. Postal Service if that person does, skip town or whatever, because then you can do the change service
Right.
requesting, things like that. Whereas otherwise, you're just at the mercy of your relationship with your postman.
That's great. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Yeah, and we'll see if other things come up as we chat here about stuff relating to those kinds of things. Cool. Audrey, how are things going on your end?
I've also been out of town for about a week, but I've been wondering about the Coworking Visa network, and if you guys utilize that at all, and what your experience is if you have.
Yeah, Jen, John, are you familiar with the Coworking Visa?
I'm not. Please explain.
Okay, so the Coworking Visa is a beautiful thing that is in desperate need of a new version, and I'm a director in the nonprofit that's managing it, and so my heart breaks whenever we talk about the visa because I know how much better it can be. We had this issue in the co-working movement back in like 2009 where we realized that we wanted to start forming agreements with each other to allow for members to travel between our spaces. But we all had different businesses, we all had different business models, and making individual agreements with individual spaces was just going to be insane. And so we decided to create a visa program, which is a very simple construct, but super powerful. Still uses the co-working wiki. And the way that it works is it's a listing of spaces that have decided to share access to each other. So if you are a member of one of the participating spaces, you can visit any of the other participating spaces up to 3 days free of charge, unless they specify any other conditions. And so basically, if you add your space to the network, it means anyone else in the network can come visit you, but it means your members can visit anyone else in the network. There are something like 400 spaces on there all over the planet. So it's super awesome. I highly recommend it. Apologies in advance for the pain that it will be to join the wiki and edit the wiki to add your space. We're working on it. But it's amazing because you can then advertise this as a perk of being a member of your space. That membership in your space gives them access to 400 plus spaces around the world through the co-working visa. So the big issue with the visa is we actually did clean this up really well last year. We just had an issue where basically people didn't know, like new staff that came on board didn't know that what the visa was. And so people would show up and the people who were running the co-working space just wouldn't know what this visa thing was and they didn't understand it. So there was some confusion. And of course there were spaces on there that added themselves 8 years ago that don't exist anymore. So we went through and we culled it and we got rid of all the ones that didn't respond. And so it's a lot cleaner now than it was a year or two ago. So yeah, it's awesome. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. Get some new people in your space as well. If someone happens to come visit, it's always nice when you get someone coming to visit on a visa. And it's super cool when a member goes to visit another city and they get to check out another co-working space. People really, really love that.
Tony, is that familiar? I mean, is that similar to Lexi? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, Lexi's kind of like an exclusive premium take on the idea of an affinity network. So, if you're a member of one Lexi space, then you get access to the other Lexi spaces. It's just a very limited group. It's a very small group. So that's like, whatever it is, 10, 15, 20 spaces. Whereas this is, hundreds. So the other fun thing about this is just that it shows the value of the movement itself, the principles of the movement, that we're all kind of independent, but also in this together.
Can I share my screen with you guys for a second?
Yeah.
Does that work? I see the button here.
Yes. If it doesn't let you, then I can.
I'm gonna give this a try.
Yeah, sure.
So can you see my, it's a little handout we're creating.
Cool.
Really?
That kind of shows our membership levels. And then our designer is really fantastic, and he took all the dots from the Coworking Visa map and the proximity space map, and he put them together. And we did this because some of the people that we're talking to like to travel a lot. And it seemed to us that since we have this sort of available, why don't we plug ourselves in right away from the get-go, and it becomes much easier for a brand new co-working space to show this sort of thing.
Absolutely. This is terrific. I mean, I think the co-working visa is vastly underutilized. So I love that you're playing it up. And is that right, that proximity space is now kind of doing a similar like affinity network type thing?
Yeah, they are.
Is there a concept similar to Desk Pass?
So Desk Pass is different in that someone pays Desk Pass,
Right.
not you. And then Desk Pass pays you.
Right.
So it's similar in the sense that somebody pays one rate and they get access to many spaces. But in that model, the individual does not have any affiliation to any one space. So they're not a part of your community. They're not your member. They're Desk Pass's member. So I recommend being on Desk Pass if they're in your city. There are other ones as well. Liquid Space is more useful for your conference rooms. They take a hefty fee, so you have to be careful with them, but they can bring you leads. We have Croissant here in New York. I think they're in New York and San Francisco only. I'm trying to remember. There's Copass as well.
Does theirs within their own network.
I'm sorry?
Nexodus, they do something similar within their own network of spaces.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Kind of like proximity space. And I talked to you see the map that I'm showing now?
Mm-hmm.
So this is proximity spaces map. And I talked to those guys, and they were inspired by the Coworking Visa.
Actually, wait, Audrey, I think we're still looking at your PDF. You might need to change it to share the whole screen.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So this is it's integrated right into their software as a service. So when you plug in, we're plugged in here, so we actually show up on their map just by a function of having signed up in their software. And the idea is that you can kind of get a visual and then link right into, in a useful way, everybody's space. So I was kind of inspired by this. And it happens to be my background, GIS. So this Mapbox platform that you see. So a developer friend of mine scraped the Coworking Visa site and got the GPS points, and we're going to plot it on an open street Mapbox map like this to see if we can kind of replicate this functionality with the Coworking Visa, just as something for our own kind of sanity. Because it doesn't seem, I don't know if you guys have a count. You said 400. I think there's more like 600.
Yeah, I think I haven't counted recently. I know it's over 450.
It seems hard to count because it's all text editing. Anyway, what do you think of this sort of map idea?
I love it.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm not sure how the other map is updated. I know that these guys aren't on it.
Yeah, the Coworking Visa map is maintained by a third party. It's basically these awesome folks who are in the Vancouver area, and I don't know how they maintain it now. I mean, it was a somewhat manual-ish process, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's out of date. So anyway, part of what I badly want to do, and I just don't have the time and the resources to do it, is just sit down and bang out a new platform for it. I may hire a team to develop a platform so that it's more like this, where it's easier to just kind of add in your space and maintain it. So yeah, it's on my list.
All right. Well, Winston and I are working on it, so we think that that'd be useful for especially new, but everybody really. And like you say, it really aligns with those core principles, and if we're really going to participate, it seems like we can kind of take advantage of it a little more than some of us have been.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I just want to make the directory system a lot easier for people to join and participate in and visualize. Yeah, definitely use it. I highly recommend it. The co-working visa is also a really nice way of just demonstrating that you are a friendly part of the movement. So, if someone's visiting a city I've never been to, and they say, hey, what co-working spaces should I visit? If I don't know a personal friend there, what I'll tell them is, check the co-working visa. Even if they're not a member of a participating space, to me, it shows that they're friendly if they're willing to be on the visa. And so that tells me, hey, if they're on the visa, then they're probably pretty cool. And so there's a better chance that you're going to enjoy your experience there if you go to visit them. So I see it as a nice little indicator of if a space is a friendly space.
Tony, did you say you guys had recently gone through the spaces listed and removed the ones that were no longer open?
Yes, that's my understanding. I'm sure it's far from perfect, but yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah, there's 4 listed in Illinois, and I've just gone through 2 of them, and they're closed.
Great. You,
Happens quick though. I mean, they could have been open and then closed within the last
one of them's old.
Oh.
It's Sam Rosen's old place.
it might be that it might be that the person who did it identified some of the spaces but didn't get through getting rid of all of them yet. So I am going to look into that.
I get it. It's hard when you're doing something on a volunteer basis like this.
Oh, tell me about it, dude. It has been really painful for a very long time for me. Okay, so what are the spaces, Jen? I'm going to see if I can.
Let's see. So hang on, let me go back.
And now Sam's space is still, it's open. It's been renamed, right?
I believe that is the case, but this points to his old, Coop Chicago.
Yeah, which is not even a thing anymore. Yeah, I see that.
And it's got an email address on here for like a web design company.
Yeah.
Anyway, the one in Rockford, Rock Space, RAWK, their website doesn't even work. And then I haven't clicked on the other 2 yet.
Okay.
That works. Sorry, don't need to distract from.
No, I just want to get it done. Is it's like
Yeah.
one little bit. If we can get that one little bit. It was Next Space Chicago. Anyway, so this is another nice thing is it's a wiki, right? So go get an account, update your city. It doesn't hurt to do a little competitive analysis while you're at it. And if we can get rid of some of the dead ones and add yours in, like let's make it a collaborative effort. John, Augie, I don't know if you guys want to jump on there and kind of check it out. I can grant you access. if you put in, if you request to join the wiki, I should be able to receive your request and authorize it. So
I think I'm already in there. I
okay.
just haven't been editing yet.
Right. Okay. So just let me know how that goes, and I can try to help you. Oh yeah. Next Space Chicago shut down in the middle of last year. Sad face. Which means we have no Chicago spaces. All right. All right. So sorry for the distraction, guys, but that was helpful to kind of discuss. Cool. So we still got plenty of time. Do we want to talk more visa related stuff? No. Okay. Jen, why don't we talk about the person that you're hiring, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the two people, your two candidates, just some of the backdrop behind. Oh, there they are.
Yeah, so I put a call out on a couple of different Facebook groups that I'm a member of. Just saying, looking for someone, trade for services, someone who can help with some branding help right now. Some of the branding I've got down, but then just need some help fine tuning it and finding our voice and things like that. And then following that, I will need help with execution as we get more into it. How to best do a Facebook. I don't even know if Facebook ads are such a good idea anymore with their algorithm change, but a MailChimp's campaign, things like that, or should we go back to old school and do like direct mail? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, you're shaking your head. I know. I'm so befuddled by the Facebook change that pages just aren't going to show up anymore. So anyway, so that it's kind of a two-step process. So yeah, had a couple of initial conversations with people, then a couple phone conversations, asked for some proposals, got two really great ones back. And I'm just kind of going through what they have said and hope to interview them like this week. So I guess I'm interested to know what to look for, what are red flags, what are green flags, etc.
Gotcha. Cool. Do you have a sense based on their proposals of like what their philosophies are or what their methodologies or approaches will be?
They seem very similar, to be honest. Develop the voice, define the marketing strategy and implementation plan. Yeah, I mean, they've taken my two-step approach to heart. Man, I don't even know how to exactly unpack.
Have you met with these people in person?
I'm going to do that this week, hopefully.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So I would say I have a lot of thoughts on this, and some of them I've said before. I don't know, what I've said when to whom, but we'll kind of go through it all again a little bit. For one, I think these folks maybe are not going to necessarily be the people executing some of the components of this.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is just going to be, having someone who is, hopefully got some professional experience with this, having them, just work with you to have more than a spit and glue approach to it. So there's going to be some strategy. There's going to be a feedback loop for that.
Yeah.
And, some way of revisiting the strategy to evaluate its effectiveness.
I did say that to both of them. I said, basically I'm looking for a really smart marketing buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the trick. Co-working is a different beast from a lot of what people are going to encounter. And I don't know if I would hold it against someone for not recognizing that off the bat, because most people just don't know. So instead, what I would do is perhaps in the course of conversation, challenge them with the possibility that the better approaches may involve more community-driven in-person approaches and less emphasis on social media and traditional marketing channels, and gauge the openness to developing an approach with that kind of a mindset. Because social media, all of that online stuff it's a hellscape of craziness right now, right? People, like, first of all, when you're on the internet, you're competing for attention with everyone else on the internet. People who are trying to sell that same person sneakers, coaching services, websites, like everyone, when it's Facebook, you're up against everyone else who wants to sell to that person on Facebook, head to head. And every one of those other people is going to have more money than you. And a team, an army of social media experts generating content 24/7. Like, it is a content war that you cannot win, right? Which is not to say that you shouldn't play, but I would not put my eggs in that basket, right? It's just like it's a nightmare on there right now. This is my personal opinion, right? Everyone else will tell you different. If you have an inclination to a particular platform, if you feel like, you feel really good about producing content on a certain platform, and maybe you have some experience creating engagement around an online community in a particular platform, awesome, go for it. That's not the case for me. Like, I actually built a really strong following and did a lot for Newark City on Twitter because we were starting in 2008. Like, Twitter was just becoming a thing. There was no marketing on Twitter. Like, we were one of the earliest people to do marketing on Twitter before it got saturated, and it worked really well. But it was in part because we were able to really engage with people before it got too noisy. So I come at this as a somewhat anti-social media person, having been a former pro-social media person. So that was kind of my perspective on it. So all of that's kind of like my issues with social media and those forms of traditional marketing, or new traditional. What I want to talk about that I'm for is taking advantage of what you have that makes it special and trying to maximize the impact of your limited resources. You don't have a ton of resources. You don't have a mountain of cash. You don't have an army of people. So you need to make efficient use of your time and your energy. And marketing can be such a massive part of that. And so what we want to do is find the ways to achieve the greatest impact with the least amount of effort. And what does that come down to? That comes down to several things that we talk about in various forms in this group that are really important. One is sharing that story. So this is where social media can come in, but having it be a participatory experience as well. So when you have a big decision to make, when you are figuring out how to design the layout of your space or trying to decide on your location, these are times when you can have a powwow with people where you can say, hey, let's get together, let's have some matcha, and let's all look over these floor plans and see which ones we like. Right? That's an in-person experience. It invites people to be a part of it. It invites people to get excited. They get emotionally invested, and they're more likely to become paying members. And they're more likely to tell all their friends to become paying members. Happy hours, events, like simple programs, things like that, fun things. Building standing in your community. I talk, extensively about the value of a Taco Tuesday. And just, creating whatever the equivalent of that is for you, something that you don't mind doing on a regular basis that you can use as a gathering point, and build that momentum. You can, like, one of the best marketing tools I had was just a happy hour we did once. It wasn't even once a month. It was like once whenever we felt like it. It was like every 6 to 12 weeks. But when I threw it, it was the awesomest happy hour in town. I made sure everyone who showed up left having made a new friend. Everyone had a fun time. And everyone remembered, like, oh, Tony throws a good happy hour. And when it came time to launch my Kickstarter campaign, I emailed all those people, and they were so excited and ready to retweet that post and kick in $10 or $250 or whatever, right? So building that momentum through programming is a big one. And then leveraging your evangelists, your super members. So any number of people from 1 to 5 or 10, if you're lucky, are going to be super members. They're going to want to organize stuff. They're going to want to do cool things that they're working on that aligns with what you're working on. You want to empower those people to amplify your project through their own passion and through their own efforts. And so once you identify who those people are in your community, you probably know 1 or 2 or 3 of those people already. Work that relationship, find ways to align what they're doing with what you're doing, and give them everything that they need to do work that will bring prospective members into your door. So if somebody wants to start, a tech, like a coding school for underprivileged women in your city, and you're friends with them and they want to do classes, like, awesome. You do everything you can to get that person hosting their classes in your space. You can help them find sponsors for it, whatever it is, so that they don't have to pay, whatever that is. But like, get them on your team and map this idea that your space is their school, right? And then they're going to go out and they're going to build their coding school with your space as their home base, and they're going to be championing your message and getting your name out there and getting more people into your space and all that stuff, right? Or it could just be someone who's really rad, who loves community, who wants to throw a happy hour every week for fun because they like it. Like, awesome. If that person can be throwing that happy hour with you, then that person's going to help you make a ton of great connections. So really, like, identifying who those people are and inviting them to make this an effort that is a collective effort. That's ultimately what this comes back to, is creating this sense that your co-working project is a collective project that several people can map their efforts onto and make, part of what you're doing. So that involves inviting people into being part of the process. Anyway, so this has become a bit of a rant, but you see what I'm saying in terms of the approach being a people focused approach. Because you could spend, just to kind of like blow it out. Like, if we said, you have 10 hours of time that you're going to allocate to marketing, you could spend 10 of those hours creating social media stuff. Or you could spend 10 of those hours building in-person relationships. Like, you could even spend 10 hours just having 10 cups of coffee with 10 of the exact right people in your neighborhood. And like, dollars to donuts, the 10 hours of human relationship building is going to do you better. That's my opinion. And if you have to budget it, 8 hours of human and 2 hours of social, or online, just something like that. Like, err on the side of building that relationship, that human relationship, and like a handful of really, really great human relationships is going to go a lot further than a whole shitload of online marketing content.
It almost sounds a lot like what you're describing is more of a community manager.
To some extent, yeah. I mean, community manager role is one of those roles that, like, it caused a lot of controversy because a lot of people have different approaches to it. I mean, a lot of people see community manager roles as basically being social media marketing manager roles. So the community manager role in my mind is exactly like, you could do it in an online way and you could do it in an in-person way. And I think, like a good community manager, if you're hiring and training a community manager, I would love to tell them everything that I just told you about what their job is, because it's very easy in that community manager role to be like so zoned into like finishing the MailChimp campaign or scheduling tweets or formatting dozens of Instagram posts. Meanwhile, there's a human being who like walks up to them while they're doing that and says like, hey, like, what's going on? And like, oh, hey, member, I'm kind of busy trying to market to members right now, so I can't talk to you. Like, what? No. Like, this is your job right here. This is later, or it's like a separate task. Like, you need to be able to separate those out, but you got to recognize where the real value opportunities are.
And I think that's what I'd prefer to do, is to have a community manager who's focused on the events and the programs and all the in-person stuff and making members happy. And then have this marketing person taking care of the MailChimp stuff and,
Totes. Yes, I would say I highly recommend separating the tasks. And if it's going to be, if like the same person is going to have maker and manager work, then they have to be like really, really split up. Because the worst thing in the world is when a community manager is trying to do the MailChimp campaign because it's part of their job, and they're getting interrupted 27 times a day. And then they get really frustrated, and both experiences are bad. Like the MailChimp campaign requires focus and creativity, and talking to people requires a very different mindset. I think we've talked about the maker mind versus manager mindset. There's a Paul Graham article about it. I'm gonna put it into the chat, but it talks about these two different mindsets and how it's totally different energy space, and you really can't be switching between the two. Mm-hmm. So like what we would do is, for the person who did have a lot of public facing work to do, but also had a lot of online work to do, was we literally had her work from home when she had to focus on creating stuff or even answering emails, stuff like that. It's just like, okay, well, Tuesday or, afternoons or whatever, like this is your time to focus. So get out of here. Because anybody who's like got the community manager tag on them in a co-working space has the bullseye on their back, and there's almost nowhere they can hide. I mean, really, like they could lock themselves in a conference room and people will knock on the door, and like you can work really hard to set those boundaries. But it's one of the delicious ironies of co-working.
And mom doesn't even get to go to the bathroom.
Mom does not get to go to the bathroom. Yeah, mom, exactly. It is exactly that. So I am sorry to report, friends, you are going to be the one person who won't be able to actually work in your co-working space. I'm sorry to report this, but you should know this now. So you're going to cherish the days you can work from home, which is so ironic. And it also is a good reason to develop a relationship with the co-working space owners around town. Because you might find a friendship to be formed, and you may really relish the anonymity that you can enjoy in someone else's co-working space. I don't mean to scare any of you off in terms of doing this, but it is something to be aware of for sure. Or, maybe you can be one of those bosses who can be kind of you keep a low profile so the members don't even really know who you are. And so then you just have to deal with your staff. That might work.
I'm sure that's what you did, right, Tony?
Hell no. It started to get that way, actually, in the last couple of years. It started to get that way where people really didn't know who I was because the onboarding process was handled by the employees. And that was good. That was helpful. It did feel weird to not know who these people were, or at least I guess in a lot of cases, I kind of knew who they were, but they didn't know who I was. So yeah, you can get there if you have a good process. It was really funny. Like I was visiting my friend's co-working space in Philly a couple months ago. They were doing a Friendsgiving, and it was Alex Hillman for Indy Hall. And I went to the Friendsgiving, and Alex was there, and I was talking to someone who had joined like a couple months ago, and we were talking for a good few minutes, and then I said like, yeah, well, she said like, how are you a member of Indy Hall? I said, no, I'm not. I'm a friend of Alex. And she said, who's Alex? And I was like, wow, this is great. He did it. He doesn't even know who he is. So it can be done. It can be done. You can work in your space, but you have to earn it. You have to do better than me. So I think getting back to kind of Jen's point about the division of labor between the marketing people. Maybe Jen, if you're still able to listen in, suss out kind of where these people fit in. And if they're going to be more of the online strategy people, then great. Then if that, like that division of labor makes sense for you, then awesome.
I think it will.
Cool.
Jen, I was just going to add, I good or bad, I had the opportunity to interview a lot of people when I was in the retail business because it's sort of a transient business. But for your purposes, Tony asked a good question if you've actually met with these two candidates at this point. And I think you can tell so much by how, getting face to face with potential candidates and how they answer your questions. And I always like to ask some challenging questions just to see how they think on their feet. And one of them would be, well, I usually ended, my last question was always, I'm interviewing a couple candidates for this job. Why should I hire you over anyone else? And it just, either they answer that, thoughtfully and tactfully, or they just stumble because I think anytime you can ask questions that they have to think on that, you're going to see how they react in terms of, the actual day-to-day challenges that you're going to put forth to them. And, Tony's right about the whole social media. You might ask them what, I think you're going to learn how much they know about your business. I mean, that's another thing, how much they know about co-working. And what, because you have limited resources, or we all do, what tools would they use in order to get that message, that brand, or to help build that brand of yours? If you're sort of gearing in on the marketing side of this individual.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite interview questions has always been, how did you prepare for this interview?
There's a good one.
I'd probably usually be in big trouble with that question. So I think also I would want to understand a little bit about their journey and their trajectory. One of the work trade issues that comes up is, as much as people want to value the free space that you're giving them, people get busy, and so I'd want to know about what are they trying to do? What are their goals? What would they love to see be a positive outcome of their having been a member of this space for, let's say, 6 months, if the engagement would be 6 months or 3 months, so that they understand why it's valuable and important for them to be a member of that space, and then they value that experience accordingly, so then they can feel more of a sense of duty to uphold their end of the bargain. Because otherwise it becomes this drag. It becomes like, oh yeah, I have to do that like pro bono work for this co-working space that I'm not getting paid for, which is like not the agreement. The whole point is that they are getting something of value for it, but they have to remember what that value is. So I guess I would ask, like, what do they want to do in terms of their own business growth, and like what's the priority? And then secondarily, what are their intentions around the boundaries they're going to set, so that they can, make sure that they are dedicating to you the time that they promise. And you can hedge that a little bit by making sure that you have some check-ins and some project management that you do with them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would ask about that.
Jen, another good question. I would be curious what, if you weren't trading off your space for their time, what they actually charge on an hourly rate, because you're
they provided that.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yeah.
How
So
they value their own time.
we'll just we'll talk dollars. How much does my membership cost? How much do your services cost? And boom, there's the exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could even be kind of written up as a contract, with a sense of like, I'm engaging you as a contractor, to do the following work. And yeah. Neat. Yeah. What else about that? Do you have a sense of what the term will be?
Length of time, you mean? Both talked about a year with some extensive, not just hand holding, but they will actually do something in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And then, kind of a teaching process, and then like a, pushing me out of the nest, basically. un- unless I wanted to re-engage them for a longer length of time. But I think in both cases, it would be prudent to have a trial period. Because what if we're working together for a few months and it's just not working out
Yeah.
for a reason?
Yeah. So a good like mutual like mutual check-in after 1 or 2 or 3 months is great, because then it lets you gracefully renegotiate or part ways if you need to.
Right.
And
But then the question is, okay, so let's say they did work for me for 2 months. I'm not open yet. I don't have anything to give you. Do we just cut our losses, or do they cut their loss? I mean, it wouldn't be a loss necessarily on my end, I guess, but
I would say if at that point you decide that you don't want to work with that person anymore, you can say, hey, I'd like to change this up, and I want to figure out how to offer you value for what you've done for me. So let's figure that out. If they work for you for 2 months, you're not open yet, then maybe you just give them 2 months of free membership when you open.
yeah.
And if they don't like that, well, I don't know. That's figure it out.
in the agreement before we start.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there is a bit of a funny situation there, because you can't give them what you're offering them before you're open. So you have to account for that somehow, or not account for it. That's up to you.
It's a prenup.
Yeah, but if in the case of a year, then I would definitely say that you want to treat it more like I don't want to say an apprenticeship, but you want to treat it kind of like a partnership where you're both committed to each other's long-term goals.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I would say that I would want you to offer them more than just space. I would want to align with their business goals. Where do they want to be in a year? They probably don't know, but let's get something on paper, some kind of ambition, so that this isn't just kind of stretching out into oblivion with no particular sense of progress. Like, I would want to know how you helped them be more successful by giving them this opportunity. And again, this is just from a motivation standpoint. Like, there's no way that this person is going to be super excited to be continuing to do this work with you in a year unless they feel like the progress of them and their business is really aligned with you and yours. So let's get that set up now.
Yeah. The first thing off the top of my head is like, maybe you're listed as our exclusive marketing partner and access to our membership, and you get to be the exclusive person to give talks and stuff like that in the space regarding marketing. I don't know.
I would be very careful with the exclusive word, but you could certainly say that they would be, a featured resident expert. I love the idea of resident experts. You can do it.
That's better. Resident expert.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, but yeah, get a sense of their goals first, and then that'll help
Okay.
you see what that could look like. Cool. All right. Anything else, guys?
Have you created any like job description versions of what you said a little bit ago about the community manager over time, like when you were hiring employees?
I have some that I've used. I can dig them up. I don't know that I love them. I think we do have a job description that my friend Iris created.
Yeah, that's the one that I was looking at.
Uh-huh.
What I noticed about that is it's sort of like three people's jobs combined into one. Like you're talking about the community manager, the kind of owner task, the business role, and the marketing.
Yeah.
That one has all of those things combined.
Yeah. It's probably not aligned with my philosophy of what I was just describing. I don't know that I have that. I do have some job descriptions now that I'm just quickly searching through my materials here. So why don't I have a look and see if I think they're worth adding to the toolkit.
Even if it was just kind of like your philosophy in a paragraph, like some copy of what you're saying. This is what I would tell a community manager to start out. Because lots of us are trying to hire people like this.
Yeah, sure.
It's hard to connect with, it's hard to find those people and then communicate these ideas, even though we sort of share those values.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, if you're talking about, you know, like the general kind of co-working philosophy, like the mindset of, being people oriented as opposed to social media oriented, things like that. Yeah.
It seems like that would be helpful in the toolkit.
Yeah. Yeah. More stuff around hiring, I think, is useful. Cool. I am working on overhauling my offerings now, so I will put this right. I literally am looking at the word hiring in my little notebook right here. Um, so yeah, it seems like there's kind of this straightforward job description, but then there's kind of philosophy, um, and then I guess like hiring tips, right? Like
Yeah.
interview, that kind of thing. Okay, cool. And I'll have a look at the job descriptions I have just in case I think they might be useful for you.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, guys. Anything else you need? Throw more stuff into the discussion groups. Would love to just see more discussion going on there. So, yeah, in the meantime, keep up the great work.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks,
All
Tony.
right. Yeah, thanks so much. Take care.
Bye, guys.
All right. Bye.